Hello and welcome back to the Movie Pope podcast. And today we are going to be taking a look at Hobbs and Shaw, which is part of the Fast and Furious franchise. Now, for those of y'all who don't know, Lee and I always had
the villain Idris Elba here attacks them, and Hattie's able to escape, but she injects herself with the virus, and this is how everything happens. And the only thing I could think of, what movie does that sound very familiar to you? What movie do you think about when you hear somebody injects themselves with a virus in order to keep it out of the villain's hands?
Ooh, there are plenty that I've lost count throughout the years.
That's fair, right? So the first thing that jumped in my mind was Mission Impossible 2. Right? You remember Mission Impossible 2, right?
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Right,
oddly enough, Vanessa Kirby, was in a recent Mission Impossible's film that we reviewed last year.
Yes, and that's what kind of got me on that train of thought, because I was thinking about Mission Impossible. And I'm like, oh wait, is that the plot of Mission Impossible 2? Like, I know it doesn't happen right at the beginning, but Tom Cruise, kind of hires this person that is kind of, I guess, a plant against the villain, and she ends up ejecting herself and everything. So I'm like, okay, well, kind of give me Mission Impossible vibes. Probably not the Mission Impossible you want to be copying off of, because I think MI2 is probably one of the weakest ones, if not the weakest one. But you do you movie franchise. So that's how it starts off, right? So you kind of get this, kind of opening, and after that we get to meet and I like how he kind of interrupts this breakfast that Hobbs is having with his daughter. I believe the daughter was 9 years old, if I remember correctly. Yeah. And he just kind of divulges on the group that, hey, we got to stop this virus because this virus is going to kill everybody. And I was thinking to myself, is this supposed to be humorous that he's sharing all this information with this 9-year-old girl? Because I don't know about you, I'm pretty sure if I was 9 and I found out that there was a virus that was going to destroy the world, I'd be shitting my pants as a 9-year-old. She kind of takes it in stride, but I don't know. That's just me. I don't know how I feel about that. It was just kind of weird, but that's what we have happening. So we have Hobbs and Shaw. They kind of have this team up, and obviously it's just kind of like a bad buddy cop film, where we have Hobbs and Shaw. They're just sitting there bickering and fighting as we get to meet them, and the dialogue is just, it's bad. It's just, they don't have, I like The Rock, right? I think he's decent, especially on the role he's doing. Jason Statham, he can be okay, but the two of them together, they just don't have any good chemistry. And I think the dialogue was just, it was just like a bunch of high schoolers wrote it. I don't know. How'd you feel about their back and forth? Because that's the longest running joke in this, is they just constantly make fun of each other.
I mean, I just think it's kind of weird that you have Jason Statham trying to do action comedy. I mean, he can do the action pretty well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the comedy, it's kind of hit or miss.
Oh yeah.
Now, obviously, The Rock, he's a great comedic actor. He's got the chops for it. But but even then, like you said, I mean, you just can't believe that there's any chemistry between them, right? Because even when they're having the back and forth bantering, it's like it just feels forced. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's grating. It's grating to hear them try to pretend like they're one-upping each other. It was so hard to listen to. The first time it happened, I was like, okay, sure. And then by the 20th line of dialogue where they're just doing it again, I'm like, I'm out. This is just not enjoyable anymore. Let's move on and to do something else. So we do get this set up where both of them have to reluctantly work together to find Hattie, who's kind of undercover. And because they can't work together, they decide that they're going to do different. They're going to have different ways of,
Hobbs and Shaw. But you also can't see any chemistry between Shaw and his sister. It's like if they say it, if they say she's my sister long enough, then yeah, the audience will definitely have to believe it, because he keeps saying it over and over again. I mean, did you notice that in the movie too? He kept saying, yeah, she's my sister. She's my sister. I'm like, Yeah, we get that. Like, we firmly established that at the very beginning. I mean, you don't
Got to
need to
beat
keep
it over
telling
our
us that.
heads with it.
Yeah, exactly. With that cricket bat.
Hmm.
But also the fact that that later on when they're on Samoa, and and Hobbs makes her promise that they, once they get over this, they go and try to fix the mistakes of their past, and she kisses him. It's like, okay, that felt kind of forced right there, right there. I mean, there's nothing organic about that. There was nothing that, the situation that called for her to do that.
No.
But you also remember too, when when Hobbs grabs her, from from that dune buggy and swings her in, into the cab, and she kind of mounts him. That's like one of the most
Yes.
awkward. That was like one of the most awkward shots right there, right? Because there was nothing that was building up to it, and then they insert that in, and it's like, okay, well, I know you guys are saying that there's chemistry in there, but there isn't anything. It's just a bunch of
Yep.
people who just happen to get smashed into this crazy situation, and they're trying to make the
Yep.
best of it.
Yeah, you try to force like this physical interaction with them just for the sake of them trying to show this blossoming relationship that's not really going anywhere.
No, and it doesn't go anywhere after the movie either.
No,
So
no. Well, I don't know. Maybe like I think that there's supposed to be, I don't know, some type of other type of spinoff, but I don't really know. So, but yes, there's not a whole lot that ever comes of this, but I'm not exactly in tune with the Fast and Furious universe at this stage.
yeah,
So I'll kind of hold off on any judgment on that, because I don't know if she ever shows up again or what. But yeah, so we have this kind of sequence where we kind of see everyone fighting, and then we kind of see Brixton, right? Idris Elba's the villain, right? He shows up to the CIA building. It looks like she's trying, and then Shaw shows up, and he's like wearing a vest, and he's got like a fucking beanie on his head. And I'm sorry, we could bleep that part out.
well, don't forget the glasses. He's also got glasses on.
Oh, okay, yes. I'm sorry, I forgot the glasses. But like, put a wig on, man. Like, you're bald. Like, that's a distinctive characteristic of you. You're not fooling anybody. Put a damn wig on, and maybe you would get out of this. And then we have Hobbs. So and no offense to The Rock, right? Like, he's gonna stick out no matter what. So I can kind of accept the fact that he's just kind of gonna be whatever. So I could suspend some disbelief for him. And I like how he gets detained, because it was a setup by Shaw for him to be detained, and then he just kind of shows up on the airplane 5 minutes later, and I'm like, okay, why? What was the purpose to adding this in? Does it do anything? I don't know how he can talk his way out of any of that
Well,
stuff.
you're forgetting. Well, you're forgetting. He was supposed to say my cock small.
Yes, well, that's his name, and they say it 1,000 times because they think it's the greatest joke ever.
Yeah,
His name is Mike's Cocksmall. So
yeah, best thing since sliced bread, apparently.
yes,
So.
right. So like, we never heard of any jokes like that. Like, we haven't seen The Simpsons hasn't been doing that joke for decades now. But that was what they were going for. So we got this nice interaction with on the pain. This is kind of where I realized, like, poor Vanessa Kirby's here, and she's like acting her ass off, right? Like, she's sitting there, like, she's bringing her A game to this, that she's like, oh, I'm gonna die. I'm like, you're in a Hobbs and Shaw movie, Vanessa Kirby. You don't have to try this hard. But she's really out there crying, and then like seeing her act next to The Rock and especially Jason Statham was just pathetic to me. How much more she feels like she's putting into this effort. Did you ever come across, like, I know we don't talk a lot about like acting skill a whole lot, but what did you kind of feel about seeing these three act, and did you feel like one of them really stuck out as far as their, I guess, acting prowess?
Well, I mean, like I said before, I mean, Jason Statham, he can do the action, but he can't do the comedy, right? And then The Rock, well, he's he pretty much feels pretty comfortable doing comedy, but as well as doing action. But I feel like overall everybody was kind of like, I mean, they were just running it on half empty, really, because they knew this isn't a movie that's that's going to win the Oscars or anything like that. So why even bother?
True.
And I kind of feel like with Vanessa Kirby, I feel like she's always on, like no matter what movie she's doing, and I applaud her for that because she's committed to the role. But to your point, it's one of those times where you kind of just have to say, hey, this isn't going to be nominated for a Golden Globe or anything. You don't have to try that hard. I mean, just take it for what it is. It's just a silly movie about some robot man who apparently can survive being crushed by tons and tons of falling bricks.
Yeah.
Now that being said, I'll also say too that that Hobbs and Shaw are definitely playing to the machismo stereotype of the strong, silent type who doesn't show any emotion. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So so obviously they can't express too much emotion because they're trying to keep it together and they want to show that they're tough guys who can get the job done at the end of the day.
That's right. Men showing emotions weak, so we can't have them show any of that. They got to be up and stoic the whole time. Otherwise, like we're just gonna be like, oh, they're just a bunch of pansies now. So, so the device is destroyed, and now we have our last leg of this movie where it's like, okay, well, now we need to go to Hobbs' family because Hobbs' brother, estranged brother, right, is going to be able to fix this. Now, why did they feel like the family had to have discourse? I have no idea, because literally it just kind of was there for a second, and then the mom's like, hey, we got to treat him right, like he's family. And the family's like, the machine that extracts the virus from her, it takes 30 minutes to filter out. Why does it take 30 minutes? No idea. Like, I realize that there's probably not a lot of things out there that are doing this, but, I guess 30 minutes was what they came up with. And then because they had like some weapon from their other encounter, they're able to disable the villain's weapons for 6 minutes. Like, I just was like, what are we doing? Like, we're just like making shit up. Like, why is it that you have a gun and you're somehow able to set the gun up that's going to disable all the villain's guns? Like, we just did an Independence Day review, right, where we have aliens that were hit by a virus and it makes zero sense. Here we are like decades later, and it's just like, oh yeah, she's just like hack the gun and we could just disable how the guns work. Like, I just was floored. I'm like, y'all are not even trying anymore. Like, this is dumb as shit. Like, how did you feel? Like, just back, where are we with this with you? It's just
it's like really, like that's all it took.
Like, writing team, like, come up with something else, writing team, please. Like, come up with something else. Like, you could have been like, get Ryan Reynolds involved. Be like, hey, he's some tech guy. We could have him get involved. And he's like, what? This is the best I could do. I'll destroy like one of their satellites and it'll give you 6 minutes. Like, just anything other than this, right? Because it just seems absolutely bonkers how little effort went into this. Like, you're just creating all these like random deadlines to hit to create tension, but the tension, you don't feel any of the tension because it just is ridiculous how they're getting there.
Yeah, it's forced, basically.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like with everything else in the movie.
So. Yes, yeah. Forrest is putting it nicely. So, so the villains show up, right? You got Hobbs, and you have Hobbs's big extended family who are all these like Jack-looking Samoa people, because of course they are, right? So we got all these, people. They just have this kind of like fist fight between the two because remember the villains have 6 minutes where they can't use their weapons. So instead of like maybe waiting for the weapons to get reactivated or something, they're like, no, we're just gonna have fisticuffs with everybody. So they just kind of have all this happening, and Hattie, right? Who's, I would say we've seen her. She has like physical prowess, right? Like, she could fight, right? We've seen her do it. So I find it really weird to me that they have her, so she's got this device on, right, that's extracting it out, and they try to show that she's disoriented from the device, right? So I guess is like it's siphoning the blood.
That little area that Hattie and Shaw are in, and as they're trying to come to their senses, that I think that's what's causing her to be disoriented.
Oh, was that the part? Sorry, I totally blacked out that stage. I totally was okay. So
yeah,
fine,
yeah.
whatever, right? So she's all disoriented, and I like how she just kind of walks. She just kind of walks up to the villain's helicopter that lands there, and I'm like, you know, like, don't make her like this pathetic damsel in distress, right? Like, okay, sure, like I understand now. I guess that was a part where my brain just stopped working for a few seconds. My brain cells were not firing in that moment, and they were just like, I can't deal with it anymore. So I don't remember that specifically, but if you're trying to protect this person, right, and she has this, device that's on her that she has to keep away for damage, right? Because we've already seen the device get destroyed before. Why is she out on the front lines? Like, give her like something to do, like away from everything. Like, just don't have her out there, because she just kind of like just walks into the villain's hands, and it was totally bonkers. Like, I was just like, oh
yeah, it's kind of anymore. It kind of reminded me of that scene from Avengers Infinity War where where Vision decides, you know what, I'm instead of being in this tower where they're trying to get the stone from me, I'm just gonna wander all the way to where Captain America is, help him out. Oh, and there's Thanos, and he rips the stone out of his head.
Yep, that's a good analogy. I like that one. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're seeing in front of our eyes unfolding. And
well, that's a mention too. Like, that thing is extracting the virus, and let's remember, Etion is after the virus.
Yes.
So, like, once they get the virus, I mean, they can pretty much do whatever they want to Hattie. So
yeah. So literally everything just kind of falls into their hands, pretty much literally. And so of course, Hobbs and Shaw, they see Hattie get taken away in the helicopter, and this was the moment, Luca. Right? We've been sitting here. I've been, struggling with how utterly ridiculous I'm watching everything unfold. It's just ridiculous. And then we have this sequence with the helicopter. There's this voice that's kind of been prevalent in it, that's kind of over Brixton, right? And I guess, he kind of disables Brixton. This voice does. Kind of disables him and kills him. And Hattie is getting the rest of her virus out, and she's okay, and we get this nice happy ending where they survive, and the three of them get to go off and make another shitty movie. And that's that. So that is Hobbs and Shaw. So I guess, Luca, got anything you would like to add upon this discussion before we go to our final verdicts?
I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those movies where you just have to keep reminding yourself, don't take it seriously. It's just another shitty movie from the Fast and Furious franchise. but at the same time, it's like, as much as you want to detach yourself from it, there are moments like that chase sequence you mentioned earlier, where it's like you can't disengage from it. Like, it just drags you in. Like, it wants you to care about it to the point that it will do stupid things. It reminds me of little kids, where they'll do just about anything to get their parents' attention, right? Even if it means climbing up onto the roof with cardboard wings and saying, "Hey, mom and dad, look, I can fly." That's what this movie is like. It's like that little kid who will do just about anything to get your attention, right? So,
Yeah.
I could say there are just so many crazy things about this movie, but at this point, it's just beating, beating a dead horse, really.
Yes. You jump from like one ridiculous action sequence to another ridiculous one, and it just increases the ridiculousness every time, where it's just like, okay, I guess you're slowly trying to suspend my disbelief. Like, I think if you do it too early, the audience just totally checks out. But I guess if you slowly get to it, you kind of just like accept the bizarreness of it. But for myself, it's like, we've seen this time and time again, right? Like, literally, these Fast and Furious movies are built on this giant spectacle, right? It's a super popular franchise. I totally fine with people enjoying that stuff, right? Like, everyone has different tastes and stuff. Some people just love just the crazy action pieces, and they definitely do it in these movies. My main issue and what my challenge is, at least for myself, is it didn't do anything different that we haven't seen 1,000 times from this same franchise. There's nothing unique about it. Like these characters, when they come together, I didn't really care about any of these characters. Like, oh yeah, I remember Hobbs was in like one or two of them. Shaw was in one or two of them. I believe Vanessa Kirby was totally new as Hattie's character. So like none of these characters are like really interesting that we really care about, and just seeing them interact with each other is just pathetic. And the dialogue is just terrible. Like the writers just don't even feel like they are even trying to make any type of sensible plot. It's just like, well, it's just a crazy action film. We'll just kind of throw a whole bunch of random shit in there to connect everything. And I'm like, no, like you don't have to do that just because it's a crazy action thing. You either go all in for that, but at least you can make some of the stuff that you do a little bit sensible. Like just give us a little iota of, hey, we're going to just make something plausible for them to do this. And the problem is that they just continuously miss it again and again and again. And it just, like I said, it totally sucked me out of it from really early on in the process. But and
this is, it's one of those franchises where, you know, you watch it and you just forget about it. Because there's nothing original about it apart from, you know, the very first film. Right.
Yeah.
It's just building up on tropes that we've seen in cinema before, and just repackaging them in, you know, in their own way. It's kind of like that South Park joke where Carlos Mencia says, "I just steal jokes from other people and repackage them in a Mexican accent." That's basically what they do here. And Hobbs and Shaw could easily be any other spy film, but they've just repackaged it under the FF franchise and said, "Hey, look, we came up with something new." You thought we couldn't do spy films? Well, we're doing one right now. The only thing that I found funny was Kevin Hart's appearance in the movie, because the two times that he was in it, I thought he did a phenomenal job. Especially when he was making that joke about being stuck inside a can of farts all day long, and then and then that joke where he's like, "Yeah, I'm here in the office," and you hear like some guy flushing in the stall next to him. I thought that was pretty good. But yeah,
even Kevin Hart for me couldn't save it. It felt like, literally toilet humor.
Like at least it was something new, right?
Of course, yes, yeah, yes. I totally understand. Yeah,
yeah. At least that was something we haven't seen before. So that's, so I will give them that. But besides that point, it's like there's really nothing about this movie that would just make me say, I've got nothing to do on a Saturday afternoon. I think I'm going to watch, Fast and Furious presents Hobbs and Shaw. I am not tempted whatsoever about that. But yeah, let's go ahead and let us know down in the comments below what your thoughts are for Fast and Furious movies and for Hobbs and Shaw. If you think it's one of the better movies of the franchise, or if you just wish they would just stop, like with the MCU and everything else. But yeah, for the Movie Pope podcast, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next review. Bye.